Hello, my fellow crazy dog lovers. Welcome back. I'm Emily, and this is Flynn. Although it brings me great joy to bring you this podcast, I don't want to act like everything is okay. We have some really rough times right now, and there are people hurting, and we need to support each other, love each other, and reach out to each other. Ask your friends what you can do for them. I hope today's episode brings you a little bit of joy and a smile to your face.
Hootie was brought back to Jacksonville in a cat carrier that I don't think his head would even fit in now.
Today's guest is Patti. I happened to meet her at work. Patti and I were working on a project together and somehow got around to the topic of dogs. Well, then, once you get talking about dogs with another dog lover, it's like you're old friends, right? You get to talk about your dog and you share pictures and all sorts of stories. Patti has a yellow English lab named Hootie. My favorite story, probably the one about the pool, but I'm not going to spoil it for you. Enjoy. Tell us about Hootie. Is he a certain breed or what does he look like? Give us a visual.
Hootie is our beloved yellow Labrador retriever. He is an English lab, which means he tends to have the bigger head and the beaver type tail and the barrel chest, which is different from the American labs that you often see here in the States with longer legs, a little bit leaner. A lot of those labs are used in the fields, hunting and things like that. But Hootie's sort of a big, lovable yellow Labrador. So hopefully that'll help your audience get a visual of him.
Yeah, and that helps that you did the distinction of, the two different kinds.
He was a little harder to find. As I mentioned, the American labs are more prevalent, and we had looked locally here in Jacksonville, but again, they were all very lean and kind of leggy, and my husband's grown up with the English lab, and so we had to travel north for him. We went to New Hampshire, actually. We were fortunate to go when the litter was only 4 weeks old, and we had pick of the litter. Well, I should say 2 were reserved for show. They were going to go into the show rink. But it was a smaller litter, 4 yellow males and a black female. His father was a yellow lab and his mother was a black lab. And the breeder was just simply wonderful. She asked us at 4 weeks what we planned to call our dog. And we shared, we were going to call him Hootie. And from that moment on, she used his name. So when we picked him up at 9 weeks, he already knew his name, and he would come when you would say Hootie. He would perk up and know that was him. And
oh, nice. That's great.
It was incredible. She really paid attention to detail. She interviewed us as much as we interviewed her about, the health and well-being of the animals. She also trained the puppies to relieve themselves on newspaper. And this came in really handy because Hootie was brought back to Jacksonville in a cat carrier that I don't think his head would even fit in now. But at the time, he was in the cat carrier. So he flew in the cabin of the airplane.
Oh,
and
nice.
When they landed in Miami 11 and a half years ago, there used to be a small area in one of the concourses that had an outdoor patio. So you didn't have to exit security and come back. You could go out into this patio. And my husband likes to tell the story where he was just the cutest little puppy. And so all the ladies just thought he was the cat's meow. But he simply put down the newspaper in this little concourse area, and Hootie took care of business. And they went on to their next flight and he came home. So again, she was an incredible breeder.
Yes.
We found ourselves very fortunate to have been given the opportunity to, care for one of her pups all these years.
Have you stayed in touch via like email or anything, or just sending pictures now and then?
Every
Nice.
year we tend to send her a picture from somewhere. We
Oh,
travel quite a bit with Hootie, and so at one of the state parks, we'll take a picture of him. We've taken pictures of Santa and him, so she usually gets a yearly update from us just to check in and say everything is going well.
oh, she must love that. That's really great. That's the way it should be. That sounds like a perfect relationship. She really cared. She interviewed you. You did the same, and that to me is excellent on both sides. That's how it's supposed to be if you're going to go ahead and get a pure, purebred dog. So, yay, that's wonderful. Well done on everybody's side.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
I
that's great.
appreciate, there are many homeless pets that need
Hmm.
homes, and knock on wood, it will be a little bit of time before we're looking for our next pet, but um, we maybe are more receptive to that moving forward. But I do think if you are going to find a purebred, it's that responsible breeder that you're really looking for, that is doing it for the right reasons and is making sure the pets find the right homes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Excellent points for sure. That's really great. And oh, you have to explain where Hootie comes from because it's a really unusual name.
Yeah, I think everybody they think Hootie and the Blowfish, which was pretty
Right.
popular right around he's 11 and a half, so it was popular then and maybe a little earlier than Hootie. But that wasn't the inspiration as we started looking at names. Wes's family has always had dogs with two syllables in the name, so um, like Deacon and Buster and Curry, and so I knew I couldn't have a really long name. And
Right.
so one morning I came in and I said, "What about Hoot?" And my husband kind of tilted his head and like a dog would do, sort of, and said, "I like
Right.
it." And then from there, Hoot became Hootie, and it's we joke it's hard to be upset with a dog named Hootie because
Right.
typically it's such a happy name, and when you say it, you tend to smile. And
Uh,
he is that good boy, and I think Hootie and the Blowfish had a song, "Always Want to Be with You," and that's
right.
what he is. He just
Uh,
is like stuck to our sides no matter where we're at. So
nice. Wonderful. He's turned out to be a wonderful dog for sure. All right. So this is really hard, right? Because you've had him for 11 years or so, but can you come up with one word that you think really suits your dog?
yeah, that is hard, right? It would be, it's hard, those important people in your life, to boil it down to one word. I would say for us, we would probably say loving.
Hmm.
He is just an 85-pound lap dog. He just is, I mean, wagging tails and kindness, and he just he just wants to be near you. When we're at the kitchen table and he's underfoot, he is touching either me and or my husband at all times. He just
Uh,
wants to be in close proximity, and he shares our bed. I know the people out there are probably going, "What?" And I remember the pivotal moment in our relationship where my husband said, "Well, I think I'd like to have him come into the bed." I said, "Well, this isn't something we can go back on. Once we make this
yes.
decision, it's forever." So my
Very true.
husband's 6'3",
Oh,
about
wow.
225 pounds. I'm about 5'5", and I weigh blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And Hootie's 85 pounds. And so we have a king size bed, and it can get crowded,
Oh
especially in
my
the
gosh.
summer. You don't mind the warmth in the winter, but in the
Sure.
summer it can get a little
Ah,
bit tight, and he likes to be in the middle. So
oh
there
no.
have been mornings when I've just gotten up and come into the guest bedroom because I've been pushed out for one reason or another. So, but he just really really likes that, sleeping in a heap, sleeping in a pack. He likes that. So
So
we're happy to accommodate. You do the sheets a lot when your dog sleeps with you because there's
yeah.
sand and dirt and
Oh gosh, yeah.
all
True.
kinds of other things. So
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. No, you're definitely not in the minority. From people I talk to, so many people let their dog get in the bed with them, and I actually don't. I'll let Flynn. I snuggle with him a little bit, and then I ask him to go back to either, his pillow or at least on the floor somewhere, because sometimes the pillow, he's too warm on that. But you are definitely part of a huge number of people that allow that. So, I'm probably the weirdo that doesn't. So,
Well, I would say maybe you're the wiser of of the two of us because it brings its own dynamics, and
right.
sometimes if you are maybe wrestling with something in your professional life or your personal life, and the dog kind of wakes you in the middle of the night, sometimes it can get hard to go back to sleep. So I
True.
don't know that we would do it again, but there's no going back now. So.
Yeah, right. It's a done deal now.
It is.
Love it. Love it. How does Hootie inspire you? Or you could even go into how he makes you laugh, either one.
Oh, that's just such a great question. I think there's a famous quote that I've seen. As you can imagine, we get just all kinds of magazines. Orvis is a magazine that we love. They have great dog beds for those with older dogs. They have some memory foam that's really, really nice. And other magazines that we get. And I think I've seen this quote, and I'm paraphrasing here, right? That we aspire to be the person our dog thinks we are.
Right.
Um, although he has spondylosis now, and he no longer takes long walks with us, he has inspired my husband and I to really get out and explore the outdoors. Just this morning, we went for a 6.5 mile hike in a nearby conservation area. We went for a 6 mile hike yesterday. We're on our bikes.
Mm.
He really just, when he was younger, he had the energy. And so if we went on a 6 mile hike, he probably went on a 12 mile hike, right? Because he would run up
Right.
and he'd run back to you, and then he'd run up and then he'd run back to
Yes.
you. And so that's really where we both love the outdoors when we met, and we're fairly, active with that. But a dog makes you more active. They sort of hold you accountable in that way because they need those 3 walks a day. He still gets
Absolutely.
probably 3 or 4. He for sure gets 3 walks a day. Some days he gets 4 or 5. And being a lab, he just doesn't mind the water. He doesn't mind if it's like a torrential downpour outside. He still wants to go. So we're in like rain gear, galoshes, umbrellas, and he's just kind of shaking off every few feet. He gives himself a good
Right.
shake. But yeah, he's just really, really taught us that part, is to just get out and enjoy the outdoors, no matter the weather, no matter the heat, no matter the bugs. Just don't find
Right.
excuses. Just get out.
Yeah.
Just do it, like Nike says, right?
Yeah. Yes, it's true. And it's what's great is that they do get us out. Like, this has kept me more social during this time. I can walk a distance from my neighbors, but still have some social time. And he gets me, Flynn gets me on a schedule, and there's just things you have to do. And as he's a border collie, so they're high energy, just like a lab. And you are not going to sit inside, whatever the weather is.
And I think
Love
we
it.
would say we've lived in our neighborhood since the mid 90s, so pretty
Mm.
established neighborhood. And Hootie has really made those connections. We have our neighbors, we're not too close together. It's an older neighborhood, so there's everybody's about on an acre. And
Oh, nice.
Hootie is the connection. So many
Oh,
times, the first thing a neighbor will reminisce about when they met us is Hootie's involved in the conversation. I remember when he was a puppy, or I remember that day that, he was hopping around and had the ball in his mouth, or whatever it might be. So it can be a great way to start conversations with people that you maybe don't know or are new to the neighborhood. And when they
very
see you
true.
out 3 or 4 times a day, you become familiar to them, even if you haven't spoken. And then that breaks down that barrier. And before you know it, you know each other much, much better. So we think he is sort of the mini mayor of our neighborhood. He goes around and is checking to see how everybody's doing, and even with social distancing, he loves some of our neighbors' dogs, and we let him. We have a retractable leash. He can really go about 12 feet, and so we let him go over and say hello to them, and then he comes back to us. So
Right.
you can social distance
Cute.
even with a retractable leash. So
Yes. Yeah, that's what I have too for Flynn. Yes. And that is really well said, that how dogs help us in so many different ways. You know, they inspire us and challenge us and just help tie us together with other humans because they are pack animals to begin with. If you could take Hootie and go anywhere or do anything, what would it be? Do you have anything on the bucket list still left, or have you already done it since you have an RV, correct?
we do have an RV. My
Uh,
husband jokes that we bought the RV because of Hootie, right? So, and that is probably a true statement. I worked in a previous life for an airline, so I have incredible travel benefits as part of my
mm,
retirement, but we just
nice.
really don't use them because Hootie's a part of our life, and
Uh,
we tend to not want to go somewhere where we can't take him. So we tend
right.
to travel certainly by car slash RV. We try to get out, I would say, around 6 weeks a year. We tend to go more, our kind of prime time is from October to March. So we were
Okay.
fortunate this year. We had just returned from our last trip to a state park here in Florida, and it was only
Mm,
cut 1 day short from the pandemic. So we were really lucky to get that in. State parks in Georgia and Florida are just incredible and probably very underutilized for the most part. Cloudland
hmm,
Canyon up in northwest Georgia is incredible, like a mini Grand Canyon, and we rent a cabin up there in October. So we take him pretty
nice.
much wherever we can. The Georgia
Sure.
state parks allow pets in their cabins. The Florida state parks
Nice.
don't, and hence
Okay.
that's why we went and got the RV. But our
Uh,
favorite park is Grayton Beach State Park. It's out in the Panhandle. And I guess if I could take him anywhere, we certainly already take him there and we take him to the park. But that's one beach that you're not allowed to take pets on. And I have to tell you,
oh,
it is gorgeous. White sand,
wow.
turquoise water. Our
Okay.
neighbors all know we go there. And just yesterday, our neighbor said to us, you know, that Dr. Beach, Grayton Beach, was in the top 10 beaches in the, I'm sorry, I don't know if it's in the country or in the world, but it made the list again. It's that incredible, those beaches. But to
Wow.
get a pet on that beach, you either have to live in, well, you have to live in the area and have a permit. So we're always out of luck when we go there. But that would probably be the one place because he is a water dog. He will
Mm-hmm.
swim all day long. I mean, if you let him. And so the ocean's kind of nice because you don't really have the alligators that you need to worry about as much in an ocean. So, and he tends to stay a little more shallow there. So,
Sure.
but that would be the place.
Uh,
Maybe someday if we ever buy a house over there, we could
right.
we could get him a permit.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's you've been there repeatedly, but yeah, you can't enjoy it with your dog. And that's how we are. They're family. We want them to be with us and everything and everywhere they can be.
I will say about the Georgia State Park. So oftentimes we go for fall colors in late October, early November, and oftentimes they have availability in their cabins. But I haven't been there 1 year where their pet cabins aren't sold out. So I do
Wow.
think sometimes businesses might be missing opportunities. I appreciate you can't maybe have all of your cabins be pet friendly because there are people with allergies,
Sure.
but typically the ones that are vacant are the ones that don't allow pets. And these cabins that we go to in October and November, I tend to have to make that reservation 10 months in advance, which is when they start allowing reservations in Georgia, because that's how
Mm.
quickly they fill up.
Oh
So
my
I do
gosh.
think that there's a market out there for accommodating people with pets. I know for many years it seemed like the only hotels you could take your dog to were sort of the lower end motels.
Right.
Nothing against a Motel 6 or La Quinta, but sometimes you want something a little bit nicer. So I really appreciate those resorts that allow you to bring your pet. And I don't mind paying an extra fee because I do want them to be part of whatever we're doing. I would just say that to anybody out there. I know it's sometimes risky to allow people to bring pets to your house, but um, you can really open up your market if you do that, because for the most part, people are responsible with their pets and make sure
Yeah.
they're on flea treatment and not aggressive and things like that.
No, I agree with you. There's a huge market for that because crazy people like us, I call us the crazy dog lovers. We want our dogs with us. I mean, they're, like I said, they're family and they just, I don't know. I just don't want to go anywhere. Nobody's going to take care of them as good as I do, as well as I do. And I want him to, I just want to know he's safe. And I only feel that's with me. So I know it's ridiculous.
My husband and I, when Hootie was young, we had a chocolate lab for 13 years that passed
Oh,
away, and we waited about 2 years. It took me a little longer to mourn the passing of our previous lab. He was really my first dog. I didn't have dogs growing up, so that
oh,
that process took me a little bit longer. But we
sure.
had committed to ourselves, well, we're going to make sure that, Hootie is comfortable going to, a kennel,
Sure.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
overnight where we could go
Sure.
away just ourselves. And
Oh,
so
okay.
down the road, they had a doggy daycare. And so
Mm.
2 days a week, we would take him down there. And the owner had a young grandson. And when we would pull in, either I was taking him before work or my husband was, his grandson would yell, Ootie's here, because he couldn't quite get the H. And
Cute.
so he would come in, and this little guy Hootie just would come and lick from his chin to his forehead. I mean, just love this little kid. And they
Oh,
had a swimming pool in the back, and the owners would tell us during the day how other dogs would put plastic floating toys in this pool, and Hootie saw it as his primary job to get all of the toys out of the pool and safely on the land. But the other dogs didn't quite get the memo, so they said he
right.
would go for hours if they let him. He would just keep getting the toys, bringing them back, and then the other dog would just put it back in the pool or whatever.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
and so they had overnight facilities, and we went on a one night trip to Dallas, and I think my husband had a harder time than Hootie did, and that was the last time he ever spent a night away. So that was, I want to
Uh,
say, maybe 8 years ago.
right.
So
Yes. Yeah.
it didn't exactly work out. And then he kept going to daycare. Really, it was more just when he was younger, right? That socialization component.
Mm-hmm.
He was never a disobedient dog. He was very easy to train from the beginning. He didn't, chew drywall or molding or anything
Uh-huh.
that he shouldn't.
Sure.
But as he got older, that daycare became a little tougher because, they'd come home with bumps and scrapes and
Right.
from
True.
who knows what, the bottom of the pool or
Yeah.
whatnot. So we kind of dialed that back a bit, but
Okay.
he still loves to swim. Given any chance in any body of water, he
He's
will he
there.
will go. Yes, swimming pool to lake to ocean.
It's been a wonderful life already with him. And then I'm sure life has really changed with him, of course, getting older. But can you explain? I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but is it spondylosis? Is that how you say it?
Exactly,
Okay.
spondylosis. So we actually discovered that he had that 4 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, we noticed one morning that, as we're saying here in this interview, how we're very in tune with our pets. We don't have children, my husband and I, so he's our four-legged child.
Hmm.
And one morning my husband was walking him, and he noticed his flow of urine was very, very limited. And so that obviously caused us concern. So we took him to the vet immediately. And rightfully so, our vet thought maybe it was just sort of some type of urinary tract infection. So antibiotics, it was a Friday. I'll never forget that.
Uh,
But by Monday, he hadn't improved.
oh,
Still really, really limited flow. Um, so we took him in and they did some preliminary x-rays and saw that he had bladder stone. As your listeners can imagine, when pets have difficulty urinating, that can quickly turn fatal. And so
yeah.
they ended up having 150 bladder stones removed.
Oh,
And it was that x-ray also showed a little bit of spondylosis. But at that point, 4 years ago, that wasn't our primary concern. It was those bladder stones that were
yeah.
really,
150. Just I
and
can't get over
that's,
that number. Sorry, it's just
yes.
whoa. Wow.
The surgeon called my husband during the surgery, and when my husband said to me 150 bladder stones like you, I said, are you sure he didn't say 15? Or like,
Right.
wasn't there like
Even 50.
maybe a
Wow.
miscommunication there? Right. But no, later they sent us some pictures, and some of them were fairly large. So
Wow.
um,
Oh my goodness.
that was very, very traumatic. So he had to have a surgery and get that taken care of. And then really, really healthy, I would say, for 3 years. And I'd say over the last year, the spondylosis is maybe rearing its head a little bit more. We go to an acupuncturist twice a month, I should say, for acupuncture. He has laser therapy, and he's also on some Chinese herbs. She's incredible. She is trained vet from the University of Florida. I really have been appreciative that we've been able to find an alternative way to keep him comfortable, because there are certainly pharmaceuticals, right? Duramax is something that you're seeing more and more pets on because of the arthritis. And he is on Duramax, but we've been able to maintain a pretty low dose of that because I believe we've had these other treatments. They have an underwater treadmill, so they do a lot of rehab. We are just trying to keep him comfortable. So that's why we don't take him on those long hikes with us anymore, because
Sure.
he just doesn't have the stamina anymore.
Could you explain what spondylosis is for people that aren't sure what that is?
That's a great question. I don't know if I will get it exactly
Oh,
correct, but it's sort
okay.
of
Sorry.
where in the spine where there is sort of a bone on bone
Oh,
type of friction there. So it can cause some discomfort. There's actually like a fusion in the spine. And so
okay.
it can add to just discomfort for the dog. But I would encourage the listeners to just read up on whatever issues may occur with your dog. So with the bladder stones, we were really out of our depth. We had great surgeon and we knew he would go in and take out the bladder stones, but when it became more of prevention and diet, I just hit the internet and I really looked for those discussion posts where it was perhaps people that had a similar experience and you could learn from maybe mistakes that they had made or things that they had wished they had done differently. And
Hmm.
they would often reference who the universities in the country were the experts at figuring out why these stones happen. So that's
Okay.
sort of what I would encourage. I actually found out about the acupuncture. We were on a hike at Cloudland Canyon many years ago, and at that time Hootie was with us.
Hmm.
So it probably, I guess maybe it was more like 3 years ago. And we had said that he had spondylosis. And this woman we met hiking said how acupuncture had helped her Australian Shepherd
Uh,
with spondylosis. So it was something I kind of kept in the back of my mind as
sure.
something to explore if it became, more problematic for Hootie. And we were at a wellness fair. There was someone there that did acupuncture for humans, and I said, "Do you happen to know of anybody that does it for pets?" And she said, "Actually, in her office complex there was somebody." So that's how that connection was made. I think that
Yeah.
it's empowering to ask others, and typically
Yeah.
they're very willing to share. their story.
It's so true. And that's the part of the point of the podcast as well, is to share and help each other, because there's so many different things that can happen. And, we never know what we're going to face with our dogs, but you take it as it comes and do your best, and just like you did, you research it and you ask questions and try to find people that have been through it or are going through it. Between COVID and the things that we're facing right now, and then just that your boy is getting older, do you feel that he's taught you anything recently, and from, his life experience, if you will, or from his point of view, or through his eyes, if you will? Do you feel like you've kind of gained any kind of knowledge from him?
That's a great question. I think I would have to say that he has taught us to be present, to
Mm,
enjoy the moment, to recognize that the moment is all we have, and to maybe
right,
not worry about the past or the future. I mean, you have to be aware, and certainly you want to make the right decisions. But that mindfulness that our pets do so naturally,
right, yeah,
when you go outside and you put the leash on, right? They're not thinking about what happened yesterday or 4 days ago, right? They're
right,
thinking about that moment and where I'm going to go, and their
true,
nose up in the air and so excited, tail wagging. Um,
yeah,
I think
yep,
those moments where we feel uncertain because of the pandemic, and just so much uncertainty around us. How will we as a nation emerge from this? How will our families emerge from this?
right,
He is the constant, to the reminder in our family is just to be present in the moment and to enjoy it, and to know that they hopefully will last. Our moments together will last for many, many more years, but they don't
right.
go forever, and we should enjoy the ones that we have together. So I'd say that's what he has taught us.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I hope you enjoyed hearing another crazy dog lover story. And how'd you like that pool story? Like I said, one of my favorites. On the next episode, Patti will share about some tools that she's discovered as a dog mom. Look for it later this week. Until then, I wish you peace and health.